Hello, my name's Suzanne. Welcome to my video. Today I'm going to talk you through an example of someone that I know who felt she was betrayed by a friend and who ended up in a place of identifying as a victim. Now, it's one thing to be a victim of a circumstance or of somebody else's behavior or a situation. Nobody can deny that there are victims in life and that we can all be victims of things at times. But it's another thing to actually take on an identification as a victim, a self-concept of yourself as a victim, which often involves feelings of self-pity, powerlessness, an inability to know what to do about it, really, and to embrace all of your choices. So we're just going to go through an example here. So this is someone who, at a very vulnerable time in her life, and this is not unusual actually, I don't know if you've noticed this yourself, this person was extremely vulnerable at this time in her life, and she'd called on a friend for support. And this friend, rather than being understanding, was critical and blaming her. And my friend's reaction was to feel shock, disbelief, anger, and grief. She couldn't believe that this is what she was hearing. She was already going through a terrible time, and this person's showing up not being supportive at all. And they've been friends for like 10 years or more. I think the most surprising thing about it was that this friend had been supportive to her in the past, and this time she just wasn't, and she just couldn't understand what was going on. So she was shocked, she was in disbelief, she felt angry, and she felt grief. And in between her experience of what her friend was saying to her and her feelings of shock, disbelief, anger, and grief, her mind had interpreted this behavior to mean some things about her. So let's just have a look at what they are. Because if you remember from the previous videos, it's this section here, it's this mind, this prism through which we filter external stimuli that come in through the senses and make sense of it and put meaning on it. It's this that creates our whole reality. And it's a very instinctive, knee-jerk reaction mechanism, and usually jumps to the worst case scenario and reduces the quality of our life and disempowers us, in effect. Okay, so here we are. Her mind immediately thought, I did something wrong. It must be my fault. I should have seen it coming. I ignored the red flags. I betrayed myself. This is because she thought she'd ignored the red flags and the signs that may have pointed to this kind of behavior in the past, giving her friend the benefit of the doubt on some occasions. And in doing so, she was then believing, I've betrayed myself. I'm an idiot. I've been mistreated. I've been diminished, disempowered. I am now somehow defined as a victim. I should get even with them, but then there's nothing I can do. So often there's a sense of being disempowered, as if the other person or the situation or the organization or whatever it is that's betrayed us has taken our power away in that situation. Now, when on one hand we're believing I'm disempowered, and then at the same time, but I should get even. It's like by getting even, I suppose we're thinking we should be able to get our power back. That's the only reason you would want to get even, is to get your power back, get some power back in the situation. But when you've got a self-concept that you're disempowered, then it just looks like it would be a futile exercise and there's nothing I can do. So all this runs at the same time at the speed of lightning, and it's all milling around in our mind when it gets triggered. No wonder we end up feeling pretty bad about things, and really not knowing what to do. But the bit that I wanted to home in on here was this bit here. I'm now defined as a victim. I should get even, but there's nothing I can do. So let's have a look at that in greater detail. The reasons that our mind, or some of the reasons that our mind can jump to this position are here. So one thing would be conflict avoidance. Now, often we don't, if it's a relationship like, I don't know, a friend or someone that we have a dynamic with, or there's a power balance with. Also, it might be difficult if you're at work with a boss, for example, sometimes with a partner as well, depending on what moods you're both in and where you're at in your relationship. But conflict avoidance is one reason that people's minds often take them to a place of victim identity. So rather than saying in the moment, hang on a minute, you're talking to me like this, are you saying it's my fault? Rather than calling the behavior out, which potentially, especially due to her friend's mood at the time, or so it seemed, could have led to an argument or to conflict or to some kind of disagreement when she was already feeling vulnerable. Conflict may have seemed like too big of an ask, to feel this down on the ground, and now I'm expected to stand up for myself. It can seem like too big of an ask. So going to victim is one way to kind of mitigate that demand that I should stand up for myself. Another reason that we might do it is trying to settle the score indirectly. So again, rather than just calling the person out and saying, hang on a minute, it's not all right for you to speak to me like that, for whatever reason, and there are probably many, all conflicting with each other. This is the thing, when we're in the heat of moments and all the dynamics and the demands and the power balances often conflict, and we are just confused as hell. So you got to forgive yourself for ending up in this place, because life is not easy. Relationships, human relationships are not easy. They are the biggest challenge probably of our life, I would say. So forgive yourself if you end up with an victim mentality, but through helping to understand why you're there, it can help you to then move out of it. So that's what we're doing here today. So trying to settle the score. Another reason is that often people think, well, if I just let you've got options, haven't you? One would be to confront them. Another would be, well, I could just let it go. I don't have to stay here. But if I let it go and I don't keep feeling bad about it, that means they've got off scot-free. And we don't want them to get off scot-free. We want justice. If we perceive that we've been wronged, then we want that wrong to be righted, either through an apology or through some amendment on their part or whatever it is. So settling the score and hanging on to things, hurting ourselves really, in the hope that they will then change, is another reason that we stay sometimes in victim identity. Another reason is that we want empathy and acknowledgement of the pain that we're feeling from people around us. We want people to empathize and to acknowledge and to see us. We want to be seen. Human beings fundamentally from birth have an innate need to be seen, to be understood, to be connected. And often by going to a place of victim, it can be justified by wanting other people, or rather than justified, one of its functions would be to garner empathy and acknowledgement of our pain from people around us, even from the abuser sometimes, Okay. Another reason is that it absolves us of responsibility. If we're thinking they've disempowered me and there's nothing I can do now, then I don't have to do anything. I can just stay here in this victim place and, feel justified in staying here because it's their fault. And also, along with this being absolved from responsibility, if there's a perception of I am now powerless because of what they've done and there is nothing I can do, then that's another way that we're absolved from responsibility. And finally, we can split. There's a phenomenon called splitting in psychology, where we split things. A pre-verbal baby's mind will do this, split things into all good and all bad. So another thing we can do is by insisting on our victimhood, we can insist that makes us morally, at least, superior to this other person who's betrayed us and done us down. They're all bad and I'm all good. It simplifies it. If we're overwhelmed, if we're overstimulated, then a simplification of the situation can be appealing. It can be appealing, at least in the short term. Now, let me just say, in the short term, there's nothing wrong with this, actually. It's pretty normal. If you've been wounded, it's pretty normal in the short term to kind of find yourself in the victim position. It's only when it becomes a long-term thing, if we hang on to it for days or weeks or years or even decades in some cases, it can really be detrimental to the quality of your life and to your freedom and your self-power. So let's have a look at the next page, because what we've got here are the losses. This is what it costs us in terms of our well-being to hang on to being a victim of a situation or a person. So it can cost us, if we're not looking directly at all the facets of this situation, including our role in it, then it can cost us clarity on what the reality is here and what I can do about it then. What choices do I actually have here? If we're staying kind of blindfolded in victim mode, then we're not going to be able to review all our choices and all our options. So this is one cost to us. Another thing is that if we've been betrayed by somebody who's important to us, or by somebody that we trusted, so our trust's been broken, there's a natural grief response to that. That's normal to feel a sense of grief because that's happened. It's a loss. It's a loss of something that we thought we had, a safety that we thought we had, a love that we thought we had, a safe connection that we thought we had. And that is often coupled with feelings of loss and grief. By staying in the victim mode, we don't get to fully acknowledge this loss and how it's really impacted on us at quite a deep level here, because we're avoiding the grief of it, actually. But if you don't feel grief, it doesn't get processed. So often we'll find that often hear people saying that they avoid grief, just don't think about it, or if the dog dies, just get another dog. They haven't grieved the last one yet. That's a silly example, but it's a common one. Just get another dog, or just your wife's died, just get another partner. Replace them. It's not possible to do that. What that person is often doing, not always, but There's the reasons why some people don't grieve at all. There are other reasons for that, but they're in the minority. For the majority of people who do that, they're avoiding the deeply painful feelings of grief. They are devastatingly painful, but they don't kill you, and in fact, they will lead to your growth and your expansion and your becoming an all-rounded person. We grow through our losses, believe it or not. Losses look like something's been taken away from us, but through the grieving for those losses, we actually become a bigger person. Okay, and in completing the grieving process, you move on. Not in a way that you have to force yourself to move on. You just do. You just move on. You realize that life doesn't stop. This is one incident, one loss. And, you have to lose some things in order to get new things. So there's always something better around the corner. And also, another loss that we don't get when we insist on remaining in victim is we don't learn about our part in it. What was my part in that? In the first sheet that we saw there, where this person blamed herself for not spotting the red flags. What did I overlook? What did I ignore? And not with condemnation or criticism, but just with an increased awareness and learning about ourselves. What could I take away from this that next time it's less likely to happen? What can I learn from this that I can take with me into the future and make this less likely to happen again? So the choices, when we weigh up the gains and losses, we can and really see and really get the losses, when we really get what hanging on to this victimhood is costing me in real terms of my happiness, we do tend to let go and step out of the victim, or at least be willing to, even if it's too big a leap at the beginning. At least we can be willing to step out of the victim self-concept and mentality. And then what becomes clear are our choices. So if I'm not a victim of this, what can I do then? What can I do? One thing I could do is set clear boundaries around how I want to be treated. So that might be something that you could do. Maybe if you're too overstimulated at the time it's happening, you might want to revisit it later on when things are calmer. And when you're calm, and just have a conversation. Say, I didn't really appreciate the way that you were with me last Thursday, because I actually found the way you were speaking to me quite hurtful. Would you be willing to explain what was happening for you? Because it's really not all right for me for you to speak to me like that. And if this person doesn't respect our request here for being treated with respect, they don't honor that, then we need to question whether that relationship is a viable one or not. Is this relationship one that I want to keep or not? Another choice could be to call out the bad behavior at the time. This would mean, it's all choices, no demands here. These are all choices. We're going for maximum freedom every time here. That's the whole point of this channel, maximum freedom. Maybe I should rename the channel Maximum Freedom. Call out bad behavior as it arises. Like, hey, wait a minute, what's this now? What's this? Am I hearing you right? What is this? And see what happens. Sometimes we don't do that because we also sense that there's some kind of vulnerability in the other person, even though they're doing the abusing, that we sense a vulnerability in them. Either they're not coping at the moment with this situation with us, or whatever it is, and we don't want to push them because we're more empathic to them in that moment than they're empathic to us, and we are putting them before us. So that's often a reason we don't do that, but it's still a choice. You could still do that. Another choice, which is the one in fact that this person ended up taking, was to detach from this person and to forgive myself and remember that hindsight is a wonderful thing. You know, whatever the reasons were for this person's behavior, it's not an excuse. There's no excuse for them treating me like that, speaking to me like that at that time. No apology has been forthcoming. So in order to take care of myself, the boundary I'm going to set is to just completely detach from this person. And they ended up blocking them and not seeing them again. And that gave them also more space to process what had happened, to process all of this. Anyway, I hope that you found that helpful. If you like this content, please remember to like and subscribe and watch out for my future videos. I look forward to see you next time. Bye bye now.